Good morning, and welcome to the Agriculture and Natural Resources. Today, we're going to try to finish up our 2302, and once, if we get that out today, I'd like to go ahead and go on and do the hearing of 2039, and we'll check on the time what we'll do after that. Anyway, welcome. And let's go back to the bill on 2302. Yesterday, we added on quite a few amendments, and we ran out of time. And Senator Francisco was describing her amendment. And if we I think we just go from there. Okay? Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had introduced an amendment. This amendment would not mandate anything, but would add, and probably as a carve-out, one additional opportunity for requests for technical assistance to the grants, and also requests for the grant money for projects. So I was asking to add unincorporated area with a national park site or a state historic site. I had been talking probably even a year ago to the Kansas Department of Health and Environment, because we have a national park site. It is the oldest and only remaining black settlement west of the Mississippi River, and it's marked on our maps as no services. So this is a community that was specifically avoided when the railroad that had planned to go through Nicodemus and on to Hill City deliberately went across the river earlier, bypassing Nicodemus. So it was at one point identified to be exclusively left out. I would like this amendment to inclusively add it back in. Thank you.
Okay. Senator Dahl.
I'd like to ask Senator Francisco what this has to do with water bill.
Senator Francisco.
This has a lot to do with the water bill because this water bill is actually identifying 2 additional funds for water assistance. And in particular, this bill is giving the opportunity for any municipality and any special district related to water to receive services directly from the Kansas Water Office, get money to cover expenses for technical assistance, and be prioritized for grants. So that's what we're doing in this bill, is identifying specific municipalities, specific districts that could get these grants. This would be adding to that list in a very small way what could be included.
Senator Wilburn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the passion that the good senator from Douglas has on this issue. However, in so many districts, including mine, all the way from Glacier, Sauk, Beaver, Stickney, Boyd, Hitchman, where a railroad has been abandoned and these towns are unincorporated, they too need these services. They don't happen to be adjacent to a national park, but I just am not very enthusiastic about a specific carve-out, in all due respect. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Would you like to move your amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know that there are a number of unincorporated areas. I don't know that we can open the bill to all of those because it's really important that there be some limit, otherwise we'd have people moving outside of towns and asking for water services. But I think this is a responsible carve-out. I move my amendment.
Do we have a second? Senator Ware. All those ready to vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. No. Chair's in doubt. The division is called. Those in favor, raise your right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. Those against? 1, 2, 3. It passes 4-3. Okay.
Thank you, Mr.
All right. Any other amendments? All right. Senator Francisco.
Mr. Chair, I do have another amendment. This is more of a technical amendment, and I might even ask the reviser to explain this one. This is the dates.
Tamara, would you like to explain this amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So currently in the underlying bill, in subsection A, it says that on July 1, no transfers to the state water plan fund pursuant to KSA 794804 and 82A 953A would be made if the full amount of the sales tax is transferred to the state water plan fund. In those statutes, the 794804 and 82A 953, those transfers are made on January 15th and July 15th. So this would just strike the July 1 and allow it to be a little bit more flexible by saying beginning July 1, 2023 through fiscal year 2028. So that way you're getting the actual dates that those transfers are happening.
Thank you. Do anyone have questions for Tamara? Senator Francisco.
Just so this would eliminate any confusion about what to do about the transfers that were supposed to be made on January 15th, but the assumption was that they would not be made because there was other money coming into the state water plan.
All right, thank you for this amendment. You like to move your amendment?
I move my amendment.
Do I have a second? Senator Peck. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Ayes have it. On to the bill. Do we have any other amendments? Senator Fay. Go ahead.
So, Mr. Chair, I do know, and I want to particularly thank Senator Dahl for bringing forward the specific amendment that was asked for regarding stock watering. There was one other amendment that was asked for in our testimony, and I just want to make sure that the committee remembers that request. And it was from Doug Mays, representing the Kansas, not representing, but as a friend of the Kansas Rural Water Association. And he was asking for an amendment regarding the loan balances for USDA Rural Development Public Water Supplies to be added to the other loans that could be forgiven. And I have asked Tamara to put that together so we would at least consider that.
I guess I have a question for Tamara on this. Do we have any idea how much money we are talking about on these loan balances of all these across the state and whatever?
I do not know what that loan balance would be.
Well, that's a big concern for me. Okay. Does anyone else have a question or a comment for Senator Francisco? Senator Fay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The comment that I would like to make is With that being federal debt, I don't see us forgiving federal, paying off federal debt. I think that's between them and the people. When you start doing that kind of thing, I really would think that USDA and them should be working that out. If they can't pay it, that's, in my opinion, that's where that should be.
Senator Francisco.
Thank you, and I'm sorry, we didn't have more time to really go through all the issues regarding this bill, because I would want to know if some of the funding in our public water supply loan fund is federal. So this is a different way that communities have borrowed money, and I think one of the things the House Committee learned was all the difficulties that communities are facing with public water supplies. And so I appreciate that they put that in the bill. I spoke briefly to Representative Minix, but didn't have a lot of time for that conversation. I would just offer this to make it possible to continue that conversation as part of the conference committee and find out if this was one of the things that the House committee did have a chance to look at or think about.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Do you make a motion?
I move my amendment.
Do we have a second? Senator Ware? Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Aye. Motion fails. Back on the bill. Do we have any other amendments? Senator Fay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have an amendment. As we're passing this out, I'll kind of start talking about this. Basically, what this amendment is saying, all the wording is exactly the same that I had in my other amendment the other day, except I have changed the amounts, and the amount went to $30 million, starting out with on July 1, 2023, and then went through the 5-year period of what we were doing. And I was thinking this just got printed up too. Was the word intent supposed to be in there? We didn't put that in. It wasn't, okay. Let's do that. Because we can't commit out 5 years, so it's the intent.
Senator Fay, do you have a conceptual amendment? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, what I'm doing, this is a new amendment. And my reasoning behind this is that the numbers I was using yesterday was kind of looking at what the water plan was asking for, and what this is doing is mirroring what the House is trying to do. So this way, without going into all the details we talked about yesterday, this is my reason for changing, is trying as close as we could this morning to mirror out what the House is doing.
And also, would this be, how will this be funded?
This would be SGF, that's in here,
Okay, instead of the sales tax.
as sales tax.
Okay. Senator Dahl.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Does this money go specifically for a particular reason, or is this just replacing the sales tax? Does this go to reservoirs or what?
This funds the water plan, what we have here. So we're taking this new money to put into the water plan. Instead of doing sales tax, I'm on the SGF part for what I said yesterday.
Senator Dahl.
How much money do they estimate to get from the sales tax?
Senator Fay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have heard 3 different numbers, Senator Dahl. So what I envision with this happening so quick, that this is something that will work out in conference.
Would you share the three
Senator Hill.
numbers?
When we get the exact numbers with what we're doing.
Can you give me a ballpark figure what these three figures were?
Senator
Well, this has to do with, oh, sorry,
Fag.
yeah. This is sales tax, and I'd heard like 51 million to 52 million. I heard 54 million, and I thought I heard 58 million the other day. And so it's kind of getting honed down on what that number really is.
That's all I needed. Just
Right, so I'm just trying to mirror what the House is trying to do.
Okay, any other questions? Yeah, Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So my first question was, does this undo my good work of the last amendment? But the second question would be, you're now transferring $30 million, and then $20 million of that is taken out for the Water Technical Assistance Fund and the Water Projects Grant Fund. So there's really only 10 million. So we're taking away the 8 million that's transferred now from EDIF and the State General Fund and replacing it with 10 million?
Senator Fag.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm trying to mirror what the House is doing. There's other funds that goes to the water plan besides this money. And to break that out, that's the other complicated thing to that, because they receive other money. So this should be mirroring as close as possible to what the House is doing at this point.
Senator Francisco.
So I appreciate that comments, but I think this is drastically reducing the amount of money that was the fund. So I liked the wording better in your previous amendment. I don't know if that can be reconsidered other than this, but I think we need to be talking about the 60 million. I think we need to state that it's the intention of the legislature. Maybe we can meet somewhere in between that, but 30 million is 2 million more than they have now. And then this really is the Technical Assistance and Water Grant Fund, not a state water plan to help us address the issues that we've long been talking about.
Senator Fag.
This will continue the $8 million transfer that they have too. So that goes on top of this. And there was 2 or 3 things, other Senator Francisco, that trying to get through that, at 8 o'clock this morning. I know that trying to mirror that the House has worked on this for 2 years, and this was their number that they're coming up with. So this is trying to mirror as close to that as we could, other than we're doing SGF versus sales tax. And we went through that conversation yesterday.
Senator Francisco.
Thank you. I appreciate that explanation, and that's helpful. So this would be really transferring the 30 million plus 8 million. So now we're talking about 18 million. But that, I think that's still far less than what the House had been considering, because we were talking about 55 million, I think, as the estimate from sales tax. So
Anyone else? Well, my understanding when we was going to bring this memo, it's going to be the same amount of money that the House had, but was going to change the funding source from the sales to the State General Fund. If there's some problems on the amount of money or whatever, well, we can take care of that up in conference too. We're not trying to cut from it. All right. Any others? Okay, you want to move your amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that we approve the amendment to 2302 and making sure that the word intent is in there for the last 4 years of that.
Tamara?
So just to clarify, instead of what you see in front of you, if the intention is to include the intent, instead of that first box, it would say, on July 1, 2023, the Director of Accounts and Reports shall transfer $30 million from the State General Fund to the State Water Plan Fund. And then the next sentence would say, on July 1, 2024, July 1, 2025, July 1, 2026, and July 1, 2027, it is the intent of the legislature to provide for the transfer of $30 million from the State General Fund to the State Water Plan Fund.
Yes, that was like yesterday, so, yeah.
Do we have a second? Senator Wilburn. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Ayes have it. Back on the bill. Oh, Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Seeing this, I'd like to make a conceptual amendment to change the 30,000. Thank you. Well, I'm back with Senator McGinn in terms of numbers. I'd like to change 30 million to 45 million in those two places. Would that be right, Tamara? It's mentioned twice. So, thank you. 45 million.
Senator Wilbur.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Changing this number is, I understand your point totally. However, probably none of these numbers will be where it lands on the target after conference. So I don't see any need to do that, but just my opinion. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Do we have a second for that amendment? Senator Dull. Seconds. All right, any other discussion? All right, let's vote. Oh, Senator Peck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm trying to, we've got so many papers here and amendments and all kinds of things. So am I to understand that the 45 would also be on top of that would be the 8 million? So we're talking 53 total, which is more than what the bill had come to us from the other chamber, or about the same? Because I understood the previous amendment was about the same as what had come to us. I'm just trying to get as close as we can to what had come to us because of the fact that I do believe that the House had done a lot of work, and the dollar amount was the main thing that I think if we can get close to. So do I have an answer to, does anyone know?
Senator Dull.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To echo the good senator from McPherson, I think conference will narrow it down to what they're going to, none of these numbers are going to mean much from what I understand from the Vice President.
Senator Peck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I understand that, but the dollar amount will be the Senate position. And so I thought if we were closer to the House position, it'd make it easier for our conferees. Just asking. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Chris, we'd like to have you speak to House numbers. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So to clarify, obviously it's an estimate with sales tax, but the sales tax estimate for fiscal year is 24 on July 1, 2023. The 1.231% would equal an amount I heard of around 54 million. The bill, as the House had it, would take away those demand transfers, the statutory transfers of 8 million. So the net would be around 46 million in new money to the State Water Plan Fund.
Thank you for that information. And so if her amendment of the 45, is that pretty close? Will you read that, Chris?
Yeah, the 45 would be in addition to the 8 million because the previous amendment put those transfers back in. for those 5 years.
Senator Francisco.
Thank you. If it's agreeable to the second, I would change my motion to 35 million, and I think that would come up more closely.
Senator Dole.
I surrender. Just whatever, just let's go. I remove, I'll take it away. I'll do anything right now to get this thing done.
Mr. Chair, I think I have a second on the motion now to make this 35 million.
I take that, Senator Dole, that's a second? No, it's not. Okay. Do we have a second then? Senator Peck. Any other discussion? All right. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Ayes have it. So it's 35. Do we have any other amendments on this easy bill? Okay, I need some help on the motion. Yes, Senator McGinn, could you help us with this? Do we have a second? Senator Ware. All those in favor say aye. I was trying to stop there.
I'd like to add that we give the reviser permission to make any necessary technical changes.
All right, are you fine with that? Okay. Okay, all those in favor say aye. Oh, no, we got another discussion? Senator Peck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm having trouble sometimes following the bill with all the amendments. I'm wondering if it would be easier, and I would just defer to the maker of the motion to introduce a substitute bill and pass it out as a substitute bill, so it would be Senate sub for House 2302. But not a big deal to me. I just think it's going to be much easier for our colleagues to read the bill on the floor. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, I would agree with that, making it a substitute bill.
all right.
So I can withdraw my motion.
Okay, she withdraws her motion, and we're going to have a substitute bill. Who likes to make this a motion?
Well, I'd make a motion, not quite sure how to do this, to make House Bill 2302 a substitute bill, and as amended, and it'd be substitute for House Bill 2302 and pass favorably out of committee.
And giving our reviser,
And with technical,
Yes, technical amendments for Tamara.
anything else?
I'm just used to Tamara cleaning up her mess.
Do we have a second? Senator Peck. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? You against it? All right, thank you for passing 2302 out, and I'd like to go to hearing for House Bill 2039, and if we can get this out, we'll be done, so we'll see what happens. Revisor, could you explain what House Bill 2039 is? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'll switch gears a little bit. House Bill 2039, as amended by House Committee, would require the Secretary of Wildlife and Parks to issue a permanent license to hunt and fish free of charge to disabled veterans who reside in Kansas. Any disabled veteran with that license would still be subject to hunting and fishing rules and regulations. The bill does define disabled veteran as a person who was a member of the armed services, has separated from the armed services under honorable conditions, and has a disability certified by the Kansas Commission on Veterans Affairs Office as being service-connected and at least 30%. The bill would also make some conforming amendments based on these changes to the relevant hunting and fishing statutes. And the second thing the bill does is current law contains an exemption for residents age 75 or older from certain hunting and fishing requirements, but that exemption actually sunset on June 30th of 2020. The bill would remove the sunset for that exemption, so the exemption for those folks age 75 and older would continue in effect. The bill would take effect on July 1, and it did pass the House on a vote of 120 to 2, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. Anyone have any questions for Tamara? Sure, Senator Francisco.
Thank you. Did they have a fiscal note on this bill?
I'm sure there was one. I don't believe there was an updated one with the changes.
Thank you.
They said it might be another 8,000 or something fees. Any other questions? Okay, if you want to sit down, we may hit you up in a second, Tamara. Thank you. In your packet, we have where Troy, wait a minute, he's busy right now, but he gave a positive proponent and for the testimony. I know that I served, had a degree, I was married, and had a child, I was in the service. I went through disability. But it's a tough job being a veteran. And a lot of the veterans, when they came home, they were really mistreated. I know one veteran that we had in the house. He worked in Vietnam. He was one of those that went on down in the tunnel rat. And I read his autobiography, and he was jumped in the bathroom and beat up. And those that are disabled, this is something that they have. This is some small thing, I think is an important thing, that at least we can allow them to hunt and fish. And so I'm very, very in favor of anything we can do to the veterans. The closest I tell people, they're not veterans, but the closest you can come, and it's not the same, obviously, is that when you go home and you try to explain to people what it is like being a representative, all the pressure that comes on you, whatever. It's not a life-to-death situation, but you go through a lot of things together on there. But we do have a neutral from the Wildlife and Parks on it. So anyway, yes, go ahead. I was going to say that if we do work the bill, I do have an amendment that the last page on page 8, where it has statute book, change it to Kansas Register. That way we'll make the bill effective upon publication of the register. There's another one that's coming out. We might be able to put them together. So that's the reason behind that. Senator McGinn.
I just have some questions. First one is the 30%. Is that just, I saw that in a bill yesterday too. Is that a common definition or something? That the Kansas Veterans Affairs Office being service-connected and at least 30%, I don't know what the 30% means. You've served for 30% of your life or what? I don't know. Choice testimony.
So I'm not an expert in military and veterans issues, but the 30% does not have anything to do with the amount of time that the person was serving, but the severity of their disability.
Okay, all right. So that, and it was in a disability bill yesterday too, so that's why I was just wondering the consistency. And then, is there a fiscal note? I don't see one in our packet.
I think it's this way. If, on
On the
On
side.
supplement note on page 3, the second paragraph, it says, for the removal of the half-price licenses for those 65 to 74 years of age, KDWP estimated it would receive an additional $8,880 license fees from the wildlife fund. Okay,
Well,
Okay.
and I would like to note that the bill has changed since the original fiscal, or since the original fiscal note was published. In the underlying bill, I believe the disability percentage was a little bit higher than what the department currently recognizes. And so that would change the amount of fees that they would receive. So there is a fiscal note, but I don't believe it's accurate anymore. At the time, the Department of Wildlife and Parks estimated a loss of about $28,000 in federal funds, but that was due to the change from the 30% to the 50% disability rating.
And Wildlife and Parks, they testified as an opponent.
They did in the House, that is correct, but in today, they have submitted neutral testimony.
Is that in our packet? Maybe I haven't gotten through it.
it's in your packet.
Okay.
Senator
There, I found
McGinn.
it. Thank you.
Senator Wilburn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is that lost because of there's no fees whatsoever from federal matching funds from that? Is that where our loss is?
That is correct.
Yeah, thank you.
And
Senator McGinn.
this is all veterans, no matter what their age, as long as they meet the 30% requirement of disability.
Tamara.
Yes, so as long as they meet the 30% requirement, they're a resident of Kansas and they separated under honorable conditions.
Thank you.
Senator Peck.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm going to, I guess, just continue to put the revisor on the spot here. Is there a difference between certification by the Kansas Commission on Veterans Affairs, or can there be a difference between the Kansas Commission on Veterans Affairs and the Veterans Administration, which is a federal? I didn't know if sometimes our Kansas Commission recognizes additional disabilities or does not recognize some.
I honestly am not quite sure how that percentage is arrived at, either from the armed services themselves or any either federal or state veterans office.
So, Mr. Chairman, we don't really know if there could be a difference between what the Kansas Commission on Veterans Affairs classifies, or I'm sure someone could answer the question, but I don't mean to put our provider on the spot, but so many veterans have indicated that sometimes the Kansas Commission on Veterans Affairs is a little challenging to get along with, I guess is the words I will use, compared to what the federal Veterans Administration may have designated. I'm just trying to make it so that we don't exclude anyone.
I understand. This is the bill that went out through the House. Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've had a few individuals come and talk to me because our statutes have varying ways that disability for veterans is defined. So I would take this, along with Senator Peck, as a challenge to try to see what various ways, and maybe we can have Heather help us with this, and then introduce an amendment on the floor. If there is a direction we can go to be consistent. I think the two things we want to do are be inclusive and be consistent. So I think because this is new language, I'm guessing it's kind of the direction that we want to go in terms of the definition, but I also think we have time to look into that. Bills have been slow in getting to the floor.
Okay. Any other comments? What's the pleasure of the committee? Would you?
I'd make a motion, but we need to offer an amendment, correct? Don't we need to make a change?
Yes, yes, as amendment, that's correct.
And I think the change is that we change line 6 on page 8 to registry,
Kansas Register.
to the Kansas Register. So I make that motion.
Do you have a second? Senator Peck. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. And it's passed.
Well,
No, we got to make a final action.
So I'd make another motion.
Okay, make another motion.
I move that we move House Bill 2039 as amended favorably for passage out of committee.
Do we have a second? Senator Ward? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? That's passed now then. Okay, House Bill 2039, passed as amended. What's that? Oh, yes, I forgot. I missed this. We need to approve the amendments.
So many.
How about minutes for March 7, 8, 9, 13, 14, and 15? Senator Fay.
I so move.
All those in favor? Oh, do we have a second? Second. Senator Ware. Any other discussion? Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? All right. Ayes have it. So as far as I know, unless there's something that comes out, Chair of the House, we'll be done for this year. Thank you for your work.